Absolutely. So a brief synopsis, Lynda and her husband, everyone calls Chief. That was from his playing football days at Moorhead. They went to Cincinnati for a weekend getaway. They go to see a Reds game, and Lynda loved the slots, okay? And she loved the casino buffets. That was her big thing. So after the Reds game, they decided to go to Jack's Casino to hit the slots. And before they went to the slots, though, because it was crab leg night, which, as you'll hear, is the most popular night at Jack's Casino. They have more customers that go through the buffet during crab leg night than any other time. And so what you will see is Lynda in this video, she's actually walking around this horseshoe shape, if you will, towards us, towards the front when she slips and falls. And while eating at the casino buffet, she sees a wet floor sign towards the marketplace sign and decides to avoid it. So she starts to walk around the front to look at those desserts. And as she's walking and she rounds that horseshoe, she slips, doesn't know at the time, but she slips on a translucent wet floor sign that was knocked down, laying flat on the ground. Now, in the fall, you will see that Lynda broke her kneecap, and we're going to go over that briefly. But let me tell you a little bit about Jack Casino. Jack Casino in this case took no responsibility whatsoever. They blamed Lynda's fall 100% on her. They repeatedly told us the lawsuit was frivolous and that after watching the video, we should want to dismiss it. Jack's Casino had over 50,000 patrons a week. Okay, 50,000. And this is no small place. 800 people at a buffet at any given time. And they were very open. We have no policies and procedures in any capacity regarding customer safety for fall hazards. No inspection requirements, no real obligation in their mind outside. If you see something, you say something, to do anything to try to protect the 50,000 plus people that are visiting the casino on a regular basis. So as you will see in here, just kind of walking through everything, that's the wet floor sign. And we'll show you the video, but the wet floor sign is circled in that red square. So you see it. And what you will see is this woman actually falls and actually knocks it down. The woman that has this little sash that is closest to us, right there, exactly where that pin is. And you'll see she walks by, knocks it over. Now, this is about a minute before our client falls. You will see on this video, we'll show you multiple casino employees actually see the wet floor sign. It is knocked down. It is clearly visible in their line of sight if they're looking, if it's so open and obvious, as everyone says. No one ever goes to pick it up. No one seems to see it in terms of the employees. Eventually, another woman walks by. A second customer actually steps on the wet floor sign and moves it, but does not fall down. Then an employee named Mrs. Dumas actually walks right up, and you'll see this on the video, up to this wet floor sign. Clearly sees it. And this is 11 seconds before our client, Lynda Sadowski, who's depicted in that blue oval to the right, walks by and trips on it. Miss Dumas walks right up to it, steps to the left. I mean, clearly sees it, keeps going, and does not pick it up. This is her stepping around it. Wet floor sign's still there. Next thing you know, Lynda falls. Even after falling, the employees do nothing. They just look at her. They look at her on the floor. And that right arrow, at that arrow in the square box inside the horseshoe, that is Mrs. Dumas, who's just looking on and doing nothing. The woman who literally 11 seconds earlier walked by the sign and didn't pick it up. So Lynda shattered her patella, which is just a fancy name for her kneecap. It resulted in a fairly significant surgery. And you got to remember the woman's 69 at the time. She has some other health issues. They had to put her under general anesthesia to do the surgery. It was a fairly significant surgery under the circumstances. It actually required a 6 to 7 inch incision from above her kneecap to below. Then they had to put 2 metal K-wire into her knee to put her patella back together. And then they stapled her up. And that was the damages in a nutshell. As far as what she went through. Now, as we said, the casino stipulated no liability. They fought us on permanency. Their entire defense was that they were going to win on summary judgment. And after getting past summary judgment, the top offer was $25,000. That was the most it ever was. They were very confident, even if they didn't win on summary judgment, they were going to get a directed verdict. And we tried this case in Hamilton County, Cincinnati, Ohio. It was, did it go 3 days?
3 or 4.
I believe 3 days. And we got a verdict of $3 million with absolutely zero apportionment of fault on Lynda. And every cent of that was for pain and suffering. We didn't ask for any medical bills, any wage loss. She was retired. And this was a photo of us right after the verdict was read. And she's just a beautiful woman. She goes by Dr. Sadowski, 30 years as a public school teacher and librarian, won Librarian of the Year. Her husband, also in his 70s at the time, a public school teacher as well as a high school football coach. I mean, they were as articulate and likable of people as you'll ever meet.
Wow. Wow. What an amazing result. You know, if this had not been advertised as the $3 million case on all the stuff, I would have said we should do a survey and ask people how they value this case right before you tell them the verdict, because I think the most shocking part of this is the number. You got one surgery, you got an older person, she doesn't have kids. You know, I imagine she can still do a lot of the things she used to do, maybe with some discomfort, but she's not in a wheelchair. The number is amazing. So we're definitely going to want to dig into that. But I want to start where we should at the very beginning. When a case comes in, you got to decide if you're going to take it.
Yeah.
Who took this case, and was it an easy call, or did you have to go back and forth about whether you should even take it and spend money on it?
That's a good question. I actually had this case, and I was working on it with my old firm at the time, O'Connor, Charlie and Levy. And I remember getting the call. A friend of mine had looked at the case and just said he had a little bit too much on his plate right now. I was the fourth attorney at the time to have looked at the case. Three prior people had said, hey, this is just not something I can help with. Lynda was adamant at the time. All she wanted to do was see the video. She did not know what caused her to fall. She said, this has completely altered my life. And I just want to see the video. Will you help me see the video? If this is not something that you will take, if this is something that clearly I did wrong, and that's depicted in the video, it's fine. I'll reimburse you for the case expenses, and I just want to see it. So I liked her so much, and I was worried about slip and falls, but it had all the things that you want potentially. There was video footage. You had an incredible client, you know, no prior worker comp claims, articulate, outgoing, cooperative, conservative. I mean, her and her husband, and that was a big key. They were not litigious people. They'd never submitted a claim at any point in time in their 140 combined years. It was unthinkable. And then you had good attendant circumstances, because if she didn't see it, she's at the buffet. She's at this beautiful buffet. This is recently after Jack's Casino had opened. You have all of these beautiful desserts shining like diamonds under, the display at the jewelry store. So there were positives in that regard. But the biggest thing is, once we got the video, I said, fine, we'll look at the video. You see the video and you actually see the bad conduct. So that was something we could turn into the trust and the betrayal in this case.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, let me ask you, so when I was taught to take cases, to keep it simple, because I always needed kind of simple rules. The guy who taught me to evaluate cases, John Simon, always said, look, think about the venue, think about the client, think about the liability, and think about the damages, right? He said, just think about those, try to assign kind of roughly what you think of each. I mean, when I look at this case, I think, all right, venue is good, right? And we can call the venue pretty good. Is that fair?
Solid, not great.
Okay.
For Ohio, it's good.
Yes.
Plaintiff is great, stellar. Liability is yeah, you got when you see the video, it gets better, but it's not easy, because you got, as we'll talk about, you got this open and obvious sort of defense in your state that if it's open and obvious, it's over, right? Complete
bar. In Ohio, open and obvious goes to duty, unlike other states. Kentucky's the complete opposite. Throughout the country, it's my understanding it's not like this. So because it goes to duty, if the dangerous condition is open and obvious, they owe no obligation to you. They don't have to pick it up. They do absolutely nothing wrong. They can leave it there, and you're just stuck, and you're going to lose on summary judgment.
That's it. Yeah. And then you've got damages, which I don't know. It's tough to value a case like this. So she has the surgery. It's a serious surgery, no doubt. What was her status? I mean, could she walk and do everything she could do before? I mean, what kind of pain was she experiencing? How did you evaluate the damage part of this case?
Yeah. Lynda walked. She was a very active woman. She walked around her neighborhood with a group of ladies and her mother before her mother passed away for about an hour and a half every single day. And she did it without pain. And Lynda, as we've already told you, was a wonderful, reasonable, conservative person. And she continued to walk after she did her rehabilitation every single day. But she shortened her walks to 45 minutes. And she also then suffered through the pain during the walk and after the walk. And that was the truth. We didn't say she didn't walk. She did walk. She walked every day. But she did it with pain. She was forced to do it with pain. And she had this injury thrust upon her at no fault of her own. And that was the truth. And it might seem to us sitting in a chair that that's not a big deal. You've shortened your walks from an hour and a half to 45 minutes. So what? But that was her enjoyment. You know, she loved to walk and she could do it without pain prior to this corporation not giving a damn about customer safety and their callous indifference, even after the fact toward her, really increased, in my opinion, her suffering. I mean, they blamed her for her own injury.
Yeah. And you'll see that. I think that went to the damages too. The defense counsel, we kind of boxed him in, but he took the bait and he went after. He went after very aggressively. And I think that was a mistake. I think had they come in here and said, hey, we accept responsibility for this. Ultimately, she had a pretty good recovery. We think something fair is 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
They probably keep that verdict down.
Part of this also went to the 30B deponent.
Yeah.
Matt did the 30B deposition, did a hell of a job. The defense was truly angling for this open and obvious doctrine that most cases are lost on in Ohio. And Matt had a picture of this deponent that the casino picked. And, you know, he pressed her on what rules, safety rules the casino had. And they really did have none. She said at some point, if you see something, say something was their safety rule. And went further when Matt boxed her in about the blame that they were placing on Lynda, or what responsibility they had for something like a wet floor sign that was broken on the ground. And she said, when she was being pressed, you know what, I just cannot wrap people in bubble wrap. I wish I could. Essentially saying, you know what, people are idiots, calling Lynda an idiot. Yeah. She's a fumbling, mumbling old woman. And that's your own fault, her own fault. They doubled down on it during litigation and during the trial. So,
and they picked the wrong injury. She's just such a good.
Yeah, say that's hard to do when somebody's likable, isn't it?
We had so many unique factors to this that you really couldn't duplicate. We also the humiliation. So a big part of our damage is you think it's just this one surgery. It is one surgery, but it's about a year after surgery physical therapy. But in addition, she suffered from a severe bout of opioid-induced constipation to the point where she was back and forth to the hospital for manual releases. I mean, it was really severe.
While her husband held her leg on a plastic mattress. Yeah. I mean, a dignified woman.
Yes, a lot of grace, to the point where it got so bad after the manual release that she had to go into diapers. So when they were minimizing her damages, it was not resonating with the jurors because they took this woman's dignity. They only took away her liberty because she was no longer mobile and made her a fall risk. They took away her dignity. And this was a dignified woman that everyone wanted to be a champion of. And
normally I would ask, normally we talk about motions in limine, but I'd like to hear a little more, even before that, the legal battle here on summary judgment, because I think how you treated that will spill over into how you handled it at trial. So let's go through, just give me anything you did to combat the open and obvious at a legal level or a factual level.
That's a very good question. The first thing that is coming is the defense is going to take your client's deposition, and they are going to do everything they can to get your client to admit, well, had you been looking, just hypothetically speaking, had you been looking, you would agree, you would have seen this. So you have to prep your clients thoroughly to never admit under any circumstances that they could have seen this, because hindsight's 20/20, but she can't say whether she would have seen it. We know from her, and we believe her, she was paying attention. Okay. It was not, though, sticking straight up where you would expect it. It was laying flat. It's in her peripheral. It can easily be missed, even if you're looking where you're going, because she still, as you'll see on the video, we'll play it shortly, she still has to navigate around other people that are approaching. So it's just not at a place that you would see. So the main thing is we prep our client to never concede this is an open and obvious condition. She will never see it, no matter what they ask her, how many times. That's the big thing. And then
wait, hold on. Let's start there, just because I know we got a lot of experience. I did data the last time I was on this, and about half the people listening have 20 years or more of experience,
Sure.
But the other half don't, and some of them have less than one. So let me ask this, because I had to learn this as a young lawyer. How did you prep her? I mean, it's one thing to say to her, don't say this, you can't say this, but how did you actually prep her so that under pressure, she wasn't going to get flustered, or because she's an honest, decent woman? Those are sometimes tough witnesses, because she just wants to say, I guess, yes, if I had been looking down at that moment, I guess I could have, right? How did you do it?
Well, we start off explaining where they're going, and then we do sample crosses. We have people cross-examine her. We do a soft cross, we do an aggressive cross. We'll have people ask her the same question different ways, so that no matter how many times she sees the same question from a different angle, it's going to be the same answer.
Yeah. Do you do that, or do you have somebody else do it?
In this case, I did it myself most of the time. So now Charlie or another partner at our firm will be, if we're not on the case together, will be the bad cop. Generally, we do not like, at least before trial, to be the bad cop with the person we're going to be going to trial for. But for purposes of summary judgment, preparing for a deposition, I just kept doing it myself differently.
Matt's last trial, he made me be the bad cop because I didn't have an opportunity to try with him. So I got to cross-examine our client, who was a wonderful woman, over and over again in person, sometimes multiple times the same day. Then we'd take a break. Matt would actually do the direct, so that she would feel as if she was in the courtroom. Then I'd jump in, and I'd be, at one point, I'd be a mean defense lawyer. And then the next time Matt would do his direct again, and then I'd be a soft defense lawyer, because on that one, we didn't know how the defense lawyer was going to attack this woman. And a lot of it, you know, like with someone who's smart and articulate and conservative like Lynda,
Makes it easier.
I think it really does. And honesty is best. It's the understanding, letting the person who you represent understand the implications of answers. And it's not necessarily the exact or precise wording. It's just the understanding of the truth and how the defense might attempt to bend the truth, and for them to understand that and truly feel it and not guess or speculate. If they can truly comprehend that, you're usually going to have a good witness, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think even orienting them to what a deposition is, because we take for granted that that they understand the rules of the game, that they understand that this isn't a conversation, that they, you know, what I'm reminded one time I sued Walmart, and my client was a high-ranking person at Walmart who'd been fired because she was a female, and we had a gender discrimination claim against Walmart. And when I was prepping her, she said, you know, I'll tell you something funny. I used to be the corporate representative for Walmart, and they put me through weeks of training. And I actually learned some things about, you know, prepping a witness from her, because they had worked so hard to prepare witnesses. But one of the things they did was help them see it like a lawyer, right? To understand the rules, to understand what expert witnesses know, which is they might ask you the same question 8 times, just give them the same answer, and they're going to get frustrated, and that's okay, right? Because in conversation, that'd be incredibly rude. And a nice person like your client doesn't want to do that, right? Stuff like that, you know, to me, the thing that stands out in this case is, in all cases, is as a data guy, I'm thinking data points. All she had to do was say one thing in 5 seconds in a depo, and we're not on this call, right? We're not having this class. So way before you ever walked into trial, you guys did some amazing work.
Yeah, and then on the flip side to it, and I appreciate that, I think most slip and falls, assuming you get it past summary judgment, are won in the deposition. And when you have a corporation as a defendant, which you're almost always going to, I think a homeowner is much tougher in slip and falls. We usually won't take those. We usually want a corporation that has it on video, the better. As far as preparing for the defense, we immediately notice these 30B6s, and we do it in every case. And we take the corporate rep depositions, and we spend an incredible amount of time working on our questions, making them as tight as possible to get the rules of the road, if you will, from the corporation themselves about what the standards are, what customer expectations are, what they do to meet them, what their rules are, what they do to enforce those rules. And you just box them in and you figure out everything that they did or didn't do. And then now you have, assuming you get past summary judgment, you have your voir dire outline. Because the first thing you're talking about with the jurors, and we'll get into that, is what are your expectations when you go into these large premises? What are your expectations for customer safety? And you start leading them down a path. And what we ultimately had the jurors saying is all the things they would expect from a corporation, floor inspection plans, in writing, especially on a busy day, have a checklist about who did it and when. You know, if you see something, you absolutely have to pick it up or you have to wait there. We had all the jurors training, you know, and you go through all the box stores. Who here's worked at Kroger? Who here's worked at McDonald's? Who here's ever been to Walmart? Do they have a written safety plan in place? Do they require their employees to implement? And so we knew exactly what standard of care we wanted the jury to adopt in voir dire on their own without us having to explain it to them based on what we got the corporation to not say in the 30B, and they were stuck with it. And you'll see in some of the clips, they were trying to back their way out of it, but they were stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. I love, you know, I think this idea of getting the jurors, when you're allowed to, in a venue like yours, getting the jurors to talk about what they would expect in a case just like this. Of course, with lots of jurors, some people are probably like losing their mind right now because there's so many jurisdictions where you wouldn't be allowed to do it, right? You can't ask anything close to the case or you don't have any time. But when you can, the idea that you get these jurors to start thinking about this and they get to discover the ideas and then you get to embrace them instead of sort of leading them too early. You mentioned Rick Friedman's Rules of the Road, right? Which of course was a seminal book for all of us. And one of the things that I've learned from Rick is that he doesn't believe in pushing people too early, too fast, right? He lets jurors get there first. And it sounds like that's what you did, right? I mean, they almost wrote the things they cared about, and you already knew you could say, and they didn't do that, and they didn't do that, and they didn't do that, and they didn't do that.
100% throughout, and you'll see it when Charlie goes over his opening. No early advocacy. I mean, if we can get key points from the jurors in voir dire, we'll take it, but no early advocacy. We are trying to just focus on the defendant's conduct when we can and let the jurors reach their own opinions. Now, we're trying to guide them on where they need to be, but not from an advocacy standpoint, more from a structure of the opening.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Matt. I was going to say, you're reminding me of the idea, I believe it, that you can't win a case in opening, but you can lose it, right? I mean, I believe that you got to do some work at trial. You might get them your way in opening, but what you can do is you can go too far too fast. You can push too hard before they trust you, or you can overpromise in some way, right? We've all seen defendants do that.
Yeah. And John, there is a question real quick. I just wanted to
answer it.
The 30B6 deposition outlines, we'll give them to Dan. You guys can have them, and then you can have the transcripts too. Yeah, it's fine. One thing you'll see is, you know, the corporate defendants are usually a little bit more prepared in the 30Bs. They did a fairly good job of prepping, but the defense attorney got fairly apoplectic once he saw how we were going to lock him into the rules. And so that he starts interjecting, speaking objections. You have to be really, really prepared for those types of things. We have a checklist we take with us and we give to our associates to prepare when you have a defense attorney that says, these are unfair questions. No matter what they say, they're screwed. He can't answer that. To say, oh, we'll just call the judge, because if you're claiming it's privileged, that's what you're saying, right? It's either a harassing question or privilege. And so we had to call the judge to get permission to get through our rules of the road question, because the defense attorney would not even allow them to be answered. So, just keep that in mind, folks. Pound, pound, pound away. Don't let a defense attorney dictate what you're going to do with your discovery depots.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. I mean, I think there's attorneys who have never sort of actually taken the issues up with judges, right? Or called the judge from a depot. And I mean, I think I'm a believer that there are just a lot of times that is required, or else you're going to get half the answers you need.
Yeah.
So that's cool. By the way, I'm going to try a couple of these questions right now. Let's just try them live. All right. Before we go further. So Brandon Bell, hi, Brandon. He says, we have a case where the video, I can't figure out if this is a TV show, an educational program, or a radio show. Do you guys feel that too? I don't know. I don't know how to talk. So like, hi, Brandon, how you doing? Like as if, I mean, I don't know, like he called in. Hi, Brandon. We have a case where the video was lost, destroyed, and there are no sweep sheets, but the magistrate is sympathetic to the defense, probably won't give a spoliation order. How can we take advantage of this in deposition at trial, notwithstanding the lack of the video evidence? So this isn't your case, but let's try it, because you guys are smart lawyers. What do you think?
Well, I'm not certain that I can go in the comments just a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. So Charlie and I have had some other success in some other premises cases. And I don't know about how many of you all are watching it from the Midwest, but there's a large grocery store chain called Kroger's. We're not going to say them out.
Hey, they're in the South too, and in Colorado. So probably a lot of people are familiar with Kroger's.
So we get this problem often with Kroger's, where they'll say, we don't have the video. I don't know what happened. And so we start subpoenaing Sedgwick, their third-party claims handling department. And we found out that they have copies. They keep these copies. So I don't know exactly which store you're dealing with, but you will often find that the insurance carrier has a copy. So that's
sometimes the carrier doesn't tell their lawyer. So the lawyer can truly have clean hands. So you just got to keep going up the chain to find out who is running their surveillance, and keep taking depositions up the chain to find out about that policy.
Yeah.
I know that might not help you, but John, you can jump in because I don't remember all the questions. But
well, I think the question is just, what do you do if you're not going to get a spoliation order? If we took it more broadly, what do you do when you're not going to get a spoliation order, but you need the evidence? I think there's two ways to think of it. One is, well, there's lots of ways to get it, right? And so the first is it really gone? And because if it isn't, right, and you can catch them in the lie, that's good as gold, right? And that's what you're suggesting, Matt. I mean, especially if they commit to, we don't have it. And then you go ask a tech person and they go, oh, we can get that, right? And I love taking depositions. When I used to file a lot of class actions, I love taking the deposition of people who manage databases and things, because they're not good witnesses. They're not prepped, and they like to tell you what they can do. So I would ask them all the time, well, now I want to do this, this, and that. I want to find this query, and I want to find this list of people, and I want to look at these people who had a loan at a payday loan shop over $300 in the last 6 months, and how many payments they made and things like that. And what they would tell me is, we can do that, we can do that, we can do that. And I said, well, how long will it take? Oh, it won't take long at all. I could run the query this afternoon. Then when the defendant objected and said, oh, it's expensive, it's too complicated, it's unduly burdensome, he said, well, I got a deposition here that says they can do it in an afternoon. Here I'm thinking, yeah, maybe you could dig in and look for whether or not this is true. If it isn't, I mean, let's assume the video does not exist. It was created, it doesn't exist, it's important, and it could potentially help your case. What I've found in data studies is that we've run cases where there's a missing piece of evidence, and we're not sure if the judge will give a spoliation instruction. So we've run it with and without the spoliation instruction, but with the fact that there was evidence and now it's gone. And what I can tell you is, in my experience, the spoliation instruction does not make a difference. What makes a difference is the jurors getting mad that evidence that should exist doesn't. And then the spoliation instruction confirms that. But even if you didn't have it, it's really what matters is what's going on with the jurors in their head about whether they believe there's evidence that should exist that doesn't, and whether they should infer the defendant has done something wrong, right? So if you can't, I think if you can't get the video, the next thing you do is you work really hard to make it a very bad thing. You talk with lots of witnesses about how the video should exist, and you make it your new favorite issue.